Good day and welcome to our technical drawing tutorial as we focus on the topic quadrilaterals. If you have any questions and comments, you can send them to me at autocadalive@gmail.com. Today we're going to be constructing a square given the length of the diagonal AC equal to 75 millimeters at 45 degrees. We begin our construction with a horizontal construction line. This line could be of any length of your choice and labeled X and Y. Our next step is to conveniently locate point A on that horizontal line XY. And for this, I like to use my compass at a convenient radius of my choice and inscribe an arc on that line XY. It could be any location of your choice as well. Label that point of intersection A. We continue with the construction of a 45-degree angle. The bearing will be from the right with 0 from the right, and we're moving in a counterclockwise direction. And so my major arc will intersect line XY, or rather line segment AY. Using the same radius, I'm going to inscribe a second arc and extend that arc. The first arc intersects the line segment XY at point 1. Using point 1 as the center, as I previously did, and the same radius, I inscribed another arc intersecting the major arc at this that I'm now going to label point 2. Using point 2 as my center and the same radius, I'm going to inscribe another arc to intersect with the extension of the arc from point 2, and that's going to give us point 3. I will now draw a line from point A passing through point 3. This line A3 will be 30 degrees. Remember, we're measuring with the 0 from the right, and so that angle would be 30 degrees. This line A3 is going to intersect our major arc at point 4. We must make sure that we place our ruler or set square or straight edge, whichever you are using to draw that line, as close as possible to ensure that your line passes through point 3. And point 3 is the intersection of the two arcs, and also from point A. We continue with the bisection of the 30-degree angle found if we were to draw a line through point 2. That would be the 30-degree angle 2A4. And now using point 4, and point 4 is that location where the line A3 intersects your major arc. Using that point of intersection as my center and perhaps the same radius, you may change it if you so desire. I'm going to then move to point 2 after inscribing my arc from point 4. And if you notice, it is actually an extension of the arc that gave us point 3 if we keep the same radius. These two arcs intersect, giving us point 5. Our next step is to draw a line from point A through point 5, and you want to do this using construction lines only. What is going to happen is we are now bisecting the 30-degree angle to give us 15 degrees. And again, because we are measuring with 0 from the right, our angle is now 30 degrees. Plus what I'm now going to draw that line through, which will give us 15 degrees. 30 plus 15 equals 45. I am not yet going to darken that line. It will remain as a construction line because, of course, the drawing is not complete. The length of our diagonal AC is 75 millimeters. So I've already identified my diagonal line, which passes through point 5, but I need to locate point C, and so for that, I'm going to use my ruler or set square. I'm going to place my compass point on the 7 centimeter mark, which is the equivalent of 70 millimeters, but rather I need 75. So I now need to push it over to the 75 or 7.5 centimeter mark and open my compass point to the 0 millimeter mark. And from point A, inscribe an arc that will intersect my line segment E5, and that point of intersection will be labeled C. So this is my diagonal. At this point, it is not necessary to darken your diagonal, but to remain focused on its actual length. This is necessary because we are now going to bisect our diagonal AC. For those of us who don't remember how to bisect a line, of course, you have the privilege of viewing that now. Again, you want to place your compass point exactly at that point of intersection and open your compass to a distance which is estimated to be greater than half of your line segment or the line to be bisected, AC. And you're going to inscribe an arc on one side of your line AC and also on the other side. Very important, do not focus on any other arc or line that is intersected with that first arc. It is not necessary for you to focus on that for the simple fact that these are not the points that will give us our bisector. And so double checking my radius is the same. I'm now going to move to point A and inscribe an arc to intersect the first arc I drew. These 2 points are now labeled 6 and 7. We proceed with our diagonal line or our perpendicular bisector. Again, you want to be sure to align your set square or ruler with the points of intersection and not the numbers, the points of intersection, and draw your perpendicular bisector. Looks a little messy. The numbers will definitely help you figure your way out. Any arc that's not numbered is irrelevant, or any point of intersection that's not numbered is irrelevant. That's why it's always wise to keep your numbers small and close to the points necessary. We now have a point of intersection here, but we don't need to label that point of intersection where the perpendicular bisector meets the line AC. But what we need to label is that location where your perpendicular bisector, 6, 7, intersects your line segment AY. And that point is right there, it's labeled B. It is not necessary to place a dot on that point of intersection, and I'll explain why in a later video. The crossing or the intersection of the points is more than sufficient. Our next step is to join point C to point B. Again, carefully align it. If you have any numbers in your way at this point, you can erase it and replace it or reposition or relocate that number. So 5 is in my way. I'm just basically going to relocate 5 and place it up there, nice and small. And then I'm going to go back to aligning my ruler or set square, whichever that you are using, with my 2 points C and B. It is very important that you do this Do not rush it. Take your time and make sure the points are perfectly in line with each other. Any slight error here is going to affect your work. Your next step, using AB as the length of one side. As you can see, which should be equal to AC, as you can now see beautifully. We go to point A now with our center, or placing our compass pivot point at point A. We are now going to inscribe an arc on our bisector to give us point D. Label point D. Join your 2 points, D to C. Again, we are still using construction line, though you can see that the drawing is almost complete. Any errors formed or made at this point can still easily be erased because you're using construction lines. And then we join A to D. After you're satisfied that everything is drawn perfectly, you darken your lines or the sides of your square. So I now darken AD. You want to avoid placing your set square over your construction working as much as possible to keep your drawing clean. Then you darken your line segment AB. You darken AC. And again, gentle reminder, avoid placing your set square over your object lines. You darken your line segment DC. And this is the construction of a square given the diagonal. Thank you for viewing. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send your information to AutoCADalive@gmail.com, and I will respond as soon as possible.